Oh, wait, I gotta get my phone. Got a few minutes yet.
That's when we have to have a hearing. And you only need to ask 3 times.
Yep, I know. Been
whether-
here, done that.
Whether it's approval or
Approval.
not, we don't need all of that, we just
We
need
don't just, whether, just,
comments on the budget. Is there anybody
well, I have to ask 3 times if they want to speak for it.
for or
and 3
against?
then-
I
or-
don't think so, that's 6 times. I think you only have to ask for 3.
All right, we used to do it that way, so I was wondering.
Huh.
We always did it that way. All right, I'm good. All right.
Start.
I'll wait for him to get here.
You only need 3 times,
Okay,
because it doesn't matter
All right.
for or against.
all right, okay. Good morning, County Board Supervisors, staff, and guests. Please do roll call. I don't know what happened. Hmm?
We'll ask.
Nothing's happening. I have nothing. Here we go. All right, roll call has been called for, and you did press your voting apparatus.
Just ask Ann.
It's getting there.
This is Ann Matesky, and I am present virtually.
Thank you, Ann. Emily is not here. Nick Kessler, thank you. And Joan is absent, and Mike Hofsberger is absent.
Listed as absent. You have to click present.
I did. We have 16 present, 5 absent, so we do have a quorum. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and please stand 1 minute after for our veterans. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would supervisors who have served their country please stand? And guests, staff? Dan? Thank you for your service. Moving on, I need a motion to approve the agenda. Nothing going on. I have a motion by Supervisor Diedrich, a second by Supervisor Elliott. If there are no questions about the agenda, please vote your ballot. Okay, we have. Who's not voting?
And we have to ask Ann how she
Ann,
votes.
Ann, are you voting yes?
Yes, I am.
All right, thank you. All right, we have 16 yes, 0 nay, 5 absent. So the agenda has been approved. Also, I need a motion for approval of the minutes. I have a motion by Supervisor Latour and a second by Supervisor Cleveland. Are there any questions regarding the minutes? Seeing none, please vote your ballot. Thank you, Ann. We have 15 yes, 1 abstain, 5 absent. All right. Moving on, we have the appointment to Supervisor District 2, and I'm recommending the appointment of Jake Wayne as our Calumet County Supervisor for that district. Is there a motion? And for ADRC. I have a motion by Supervisor Booty and a second by Supervisor Johnston. Are there any questions or anything? All right. All in favor, please vote your ballot.
I vote yes.
All right, thank you, Ann. All right. At this time, we will swear Mr. Wing, Supervisor, into office.
Can you raise your right hand? I state your name.
I, Jake Wayne,
Have been appointed to the office
have been appointed to the office
of Calumet County Supervisor, District 2.
of Calumet County Supervisor, District
Swear that I will support
2. Swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully and impartially
and will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of said office
discharge the duties of said office
to the best of my ability, so help me God.
to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
Welcome, Supervisor.
If you can't, if it doesn't let you, I will.
And just for your information, is there anything anybody can ever help you with? Please don't hesitate to ask. All right, public participation? Nothing? Okay. All right. We have a few minutes before the public hearing, so we'll go on and take care of Resolution 2025-12.
Resolution 2025-12, resolution to allow a donation to repair waterfall, replace maple syrup building, and add cave display, introduced by the Parks Commission.
All right, need a motion. Do I have a motion? Okay. I have a motion by Supervisor Tunis and a second by Supervisor Cleveland. And Supervisor Schwallenberg, would you speak to this resolution, please?
I'll try. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Gilbertson, as the resolution explains, was a cave person, speleological, that's a mouthful, and had donated money to the Friends and to Ledgeview. The Friends organization has a fund that can be only used for purchase of land or the aid or intern that we have. But they've decided to help us repair, redo a lot of the facilities, especially the maple syrup area, which was wide open. The waterfall, let me start over. If you were ever out at Ledgeview before we started the remodeling, when you walked in the door, it was like you were in a cave. That had to come down. There was a waterfall in the middle of the room there. There is now going to be some structure that's going to look like a cave, and they're including the waterfall. These people do this type of work for zoos, and as Adam reminded me, places like Kalahari and whatever. They're coming mid-November, unless they're there already, and it's going to take a month to fix that. So, and I'm sorry, I'm getting away from the resolution. So we aren't going to be opening Ledgeview until probably next year, at the beginning of January. So anyway, like I said, the resolution is self-explanatory as far as the money goes. Any questions? Thank you.
Are there any questions of Supervisor Schwallenberg? If not, please vote your ballot.
I vote yes.
Thank you. right, we have 17 yes, 0 nay, 4 absent, so that resolution has been adopted. Moving on to Resolution 25-13.
Resolution 25-13, resolution setting the 2026-2028 County Board compensation, introduced by the Committee on Rules of Orders of the Calumet County Board of Supervisors.
All right, I have a motion by Supervisor Steer and a second by Supervisor Booty. And Supervisor Stuckman, would you speak to this resolution, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the Rules Committee has not looked at the per diem or rate increase for County Board of Supervisors in 4 years. So at the last Rules meeting, we did take a look at that per diem and what that kind of looked like. We also did a review on comparables from other counties, which frankly didn't help a lot, because what we learned through the process is there's no rhyme or reason how the county board supervisors are paid in the state of Wisconsin. So it did not help us to really go look at other counties because there's no set way on how to do it. So at that time, the Rules Committee came up with a plan to match the increase that the county employees received. So I believe they got a 2%. So what we decided to do was do a 2% each year, so a 4% increase. We also took out the excess 5-hour rule. We did a little cleanup on the rules. The discussion was at that time, I mean, I've only been on the board 4 years. We've never had a meeting even get close to 5 hours. So the thought was just to remove that altogether from the rules. But then we also changed the committee reimbursement amount to 97 to match the county board. The thought process there was you're still, you're taking time to be out and doing what you need to do. It shouldn't matter if it's a board meeting or a committee meeting. So the suggestion would be to make that also $97 per meeting. Last but not least, we also took out the out-of-county meetings, conventions, and seminars. So all meetings are going to be that $97, and we also are looking to increase the county board chair to $328 a month. Any questions?
Any questions of Supervisor Stuckman? Supervisor Diedrich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that introduction, Supervisor Stuckman, but I have a couple questions. I understand how you did it, 2%, you get $4, et cetera, and I understand eliminating that out of county. I never did like that myself. But as long as you're going to 97, why don't you just make it an even 100 so it's easier for me to fill out my form? So I'm going to make an amendment in a second about that. But then I have a second question. When you take out the line county meeting, out of county meetings, conventions, et cetera, the new language is going to say X dollars per county meeting, whether it's a committee or a board. I want to be sure that it's clear that if you have a convention or a training seminar that lasts more than 1 day, the compensation is whatever that dollar figure is per day. In other words, I don't go to WCA convention and get $100. I get as many days as I'm there times $100 or whatever the number is. So I want to be sure that that language is clear on the reimbursement form and going forward, that someone doesn't argue, well, that's one meeting, so you're only going to get one compensation for that. So to close my comments, Madam Chair, I'm going to make an amendment to this resolution to make the figure $100 versus $97.
I'll second.
He has to go on his thing, doesn't he, for motion?
All you have to do is the two entries that are $97 on his resolution is make those $100. Do not affect the county board chairs. As far as my question, which really wasn't part of my amendment, I just want to be sure we have clarification that if you're a multi-day meeting, it's multi-compensations. But that's kind of a wordsmithing thing, not really part of my amendment. Thank you.
diem.
per diem, all right. Okay, and Supervisor, do we have to take the amendment before I ask her what she wants?
Yes.
All right.
So you have a
All right,
motion,
so I have
before
an
you do a
amendment
second.
to the motion to go from $97 to $100.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, we're up at 9:15. Is that going to bump into your public thing?
Yep, we have to stop.
Yep, we have to stop right now. Okay. All right, we are now in the public hearing on the 2026 budget. Is there anyone wishing to speak from the public for or against the budget? Is there anyone present wanting to speak for or against the budget? Is there anyone present wishing to speak for or against the budget? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. All right, moving on to the amendment of that compensation. We already have a second. All right. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Okay,
I don't know if you can see me raising my hand. I just wanted to hop in, if that's okay.
that's fine, Ann.
I was just gonna share that when we were talking about this, I'm not opposed to the $100 round number, but if we do go with 2% or 4% in the future, we knew that that would never be an even, or will usually not be a nice even round number. So if we want to round it out, that's totally fine with me, but I just wanted to add that point that we did discuss that in our session, but decided against it only because if we continue to increase by a certain percentage, it'll never be perfect.
All right, thank you, Ann. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, please vote your ballot.
How is Ann gonna vote?
I'm fine with this, so I'll vote yes.
All right, Ann, you vote yes, thank you. All right, we have 13 yes, 3 no, 1 abstain, 4 absent, and it needed a 2/3 full of the membership, so that amendment has failed.
Should be a two-thirds.
It should be a 2/3.
Should not be a two-thirds.
It should not be,
No,
well,
you're
I'm
just
saying that.
amending. No,
Okay,
the amendment only needed a simple majority vote.
all right.
It's the
I don't know if I can
resolution that
change.
requires.
I'm not sure how to.
That's what I
okay.
thought.
It passes, however.
It does pass then. I was informed up on my screen, needed a 2/3.
The resolution,
Right, okay. So that resolution has been adopted.
that amendment,
Amendment. Now we'll go to the
amended resolution.
amended resolution for full votership. Are there any other questions or comments? All right, Supervisor Tunis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The way I read it is that it's committee meetings, and we're talking about county board meetings. I don't see anywhere in here that we're talking about conventions or out-of-county meetings. So I think that needs to be clarified in this ordinance.
All right, I'll have Todd
So-
answer that.
When you are at a conference, those are agenda, how do you say that?
Agendized.
Thank you. So you are paid accordingly. That has been past practice. So you are all, those of you who just attended the county conference in September were paid for each day. And even those that attended on Sunday were given special permission by the board chair to be compensated. So if you would like us to add for the next, well, I guess, do we have to do it now, Kimberly? Because we're setting the compensation. So if you need a clarification in your rules, someone's going to have to make that amended motion to the rules. but I'm letting you know that you are always paid by the day for the conference because it's considered a meeting by the day.
Right. And that has been past practice for years.
I guess if everybody else is okay with it, I'll go along with it. But, yeah, it just, not in here, because before it was in here, now it's not. I think that that's where the difference comes.
Do you want to amend that, or is it status quo for everybody? Everybody knows that? Okay, all right then.
I'll make that motion to amend it, and all I would simply do is the current proposal has item number 4 lined out. I would put it back in with a figure of $100. And it would then read $100 for all out-of-county meetings, conventions, seminars, plus mileage. So rather than eliminating it, just put it back in with $100. And that satisfies me. Thank you. That's my amendment.
All right, is there a second to his amendment? There is no second, so Kathy will amend it. All right. Okay, we have an amendment to the amendment. And this amendment will be to include line 4 of the resolution and increase to $100 for all county meetings. Any questions? All right.
So Supervisor Woody, is it on the amendment though? Okay, so
Yeah.
Matthew has a question on the amendment.
Yep. Supervisor Rudy.
Thank you. I chaired the Rule Committee when we added that separate payment for out-of-county meetings. And that line was only in there because the amount for out-of-county meetings, conventions, and seminars was different at the time from the normal committee meeting. And so we wanted to be clear that if you had a committee meeting out of county or a conference or seminar, that you were paid that different rate as opposed to having a committee meeting in the county. We added that in there due to additional travel time that one would have for that. And so that's the only reason that line existed in the first place. If we're changing all the rates to be the same, from the standpoint of years ago when we added this in, we don't need to add it in again. So it's not a problem to add it in, but it would have been superfluous if everything is the same rate anyway. So thanks.
All right, I have Todd.
So it's tricky dealing with the language within your rules. So if you were to read this literally as amended or suggested to be amended, it says it's $100 for out-of-county meetings, $100 for conventions and seminars. It does not specify, when you're talking about conventions, it's a daily payment. So this, to me, causes some confusion as to how you're paid. So if you really do want that, it needs some clarification as to a daily or per meeting, or you leave it out. Just my comment on that, because it'll create some could create some confusion for payment.
Supervisor Diedrich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, thank you for those comments, Administrator. That is correct. That will just do the opposite of what I wanted. So I would encourage the board to vote down the amendment, to just vote negative on it. Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions? Please vote your ballot.
I'll vote no.
Thank you. We have 0 yes, 17 no, 4 absent, so that amendment has failed. Are we clear now on the other one? Now we're back
Amended resolution.
to the amended resolution, making it from $97 to $100 for all county meetings. Any comments on that? Okay, please vote your ballot. Ann?
Yes.
Thank you. So we have 15 yes, 1 no, 1 abstain, and 4 absent. So that motion has passed. All right. Moving on to Resolution 25-2014.
Resolution 2025-14, resolution approving the 2026 budget.
All right, I have a motion by Supervisor Elliott and a second by Supervisor Latour, and I'm going to turn that resolution over to Todd and to Mike.
And your screen should pop up in just a minute.
Okay, good morning. So the presentation we're providing you this morning is very similar, so it'll be familiar to County Board supervisors who have been through this before. Talks about the basic premise for any budget, but the 2026 budget, our priorities continue to be efficient and effective services and accountability to the taxpayers. And as a reminder, because you are a policy-making board, that the budget is the single most important policy that you vote on, because everything within this document, within the county budget for 2026, allows us to move forward with operations accordingly as you've approved the funding attached to it. The process for the 2026 budget, similar to previous years, so just as a reminder, department heads begin developing budgets as they have in the past. So some of them do that with state changes, federal revenue changes. Sometimes they'll provide that through feedback from staff, but they develop the budget department by department, and they flow up then to finance. So as those are being developed, you can imagine they're really not developing them based on what they know for available revenues or total tax levy, but based on that initial premise of the most effective, efficient forms of service. So sometimes, as they're coming to us in the cumulative, there needs to be changes, of course, because there's revenue limitations. So then the finance department, and then this year it was a little bit different because we had some extra help from John Anderson and Matt Payette, because Mike was brand new and we're in a new financial system. So there were a lot of different things attached to it this year. And a lot of additional efforts to get to assembling the total budget. But then we met with department heads. Each department had been provided some time with us to cover some of the things that they were recommending. In addition to that conversation, they should have had those discussions with their home committees as well. So you were aware individually within those committee meetings from the departments if there were some specific priorities that may be different than what I would be suggesting. That's the idea behind it, is that the department head's able to put forward their recommendations. Individual committees are able to listen to those and weigh in as to what some of the priorities may be from your perspective, which may be, again, different than mine, because ultimately the budget is mine until it's provided to you like today for possible changes or support. We do have that Administrative Services Committee every year and invite all county board supervisors so that you have an opportunity for a couple different opportunities for conversation to review what's in the budget and ask questions, and then sit with it for about a month. And I know we've received several questions since the October meeting, which was nice to see because you had the opportunity to review that for a month, ask some questions possibly of us as to how things or why things were changed, and make sense of, because it's a large document. So to get it at that October meeting, it pays to have an extra month to review that and see what's different And this year, we had 16 of the 20, and if we count Jake, because he was here, even though he's not in that number, it was a pretty good turnout, better than we had last year. And then the public hearing for comments, and unfortunately, we don't get very many of, if any, public comments, but we do provide the notice as appropriate, and the opportunity, as you just saw, at 9:15 for the public to weigh in. And then today, the final step in the budget process for your review and approval. So not uncommon, there are times between the October and November meetings where things change. We review things, we get additional estimates. And in this instance, we had identified some changes that were necessary. The first one, which is the supportive home care piece, I forgot about because we had hired a consultant, and Andrea Ramirez, some of you may be familiar with her name from the Health and Human Services Board. She was our business finance manager from Health and Human Services before her departure. And one of the primary goals she had, because she came with extensive experience in this area, was to develop a plan for implementation for supportive home care, which you as a county board supported through the strategic plan that was adopted in September, I believe, or August. So I did not put those positions in the budget because I forgot we had the supervisor position that we need to include, and selected a number, best guess estimate of 5 supportive home care staff at a salary and fringe rate which already exists for other supportive home care or CNA type services. There's no impact on the bottom line because supportive home care is self-sustaining through revenues, through private pay or Medicaid or Medicare payments. The idea behind the supportive home care implementation is actually to create additional revenue beyond what we're currently getting in home care and hospice, with the idea that we can be at a break even once again, or possibly better, as we had been previously in home care and hospice prior to COVID. So a lot of the changes that have occurred in home health and hospice has been primarily the Medicare and reimbursement rates, and implementing supportive home care helps us improve that financially. So the addition is added expenses with equal or better than added revenues to the bottom line. In addition, the next 2 bullets go together: the reduction in the sheriff's office by the $178,000 and the increase in HHS by $178,000. So how this came to be was Health and Human Services, unintentionally, we had them reduced by $300,000. So from previous year's levy, 2025 to 2026, we cut their levy by $300,000, which is far more significant than just the $300,000. Because that also makes them absorb all of the wage increases from 2025 to 2026, which I believe was in excess of $300,000 just for them. So that would not be a manageable cut for Health and Human Services. How that occurred is they have a non-lapsing account. We were asking that to be utilized rather than the levy, but didn't recognize that it was that significant of an amount until it was pointed out to us by the department. Lynn Brenner said, that seems like a larger cut than what you said I was going to get, and she was right. So the counter to that is the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office, in our conversations with them, was their overtime. The overtime was significantly higher the last few years, but even higher again in 2026. That, they indicated, is due to staff shortages and the difficulty in filling positions. Well, it didn't make sense for us to fully fund all the full-time positions and then give them all of the additional overtime, when they're telling us we're getting the additional overtime because we're going to be short-staffed. So we adjusted the wages and fringes for those patrol positions to counterbalance and left the overtime higher. And I spoke to Derek about that, and he indicated that that made sense to him and that was acceptable as far as operations for the sheriff's office for 2026. The last bullet is the second floor remodel project. So in the capital improvement plan, there are dollars attached to a second floor remodel. And I believe it's about $2 million. And there's also carryover, is the anticipated carryover that could happen from 2025 to 2026. However, we met with the architect last week, Thursday or Friday, and have an initial per square feet price, and everything turns out to be more expensive than we originally anticipated. This time, however, because we had the conversation prior to adopting the budget, I just wanted to let you know that roughly completing the entire second floor is a little over $9 million. Because the added amount is the VAV. Is that the HVAC, Adam? I forget what VAV actually stands for, but HVAC we understand. So we just believe that we've been informed it's almost at its life expectancy, and it doesn't make sense to not do it since we're already going to be in the system. So we put the second floor remodel at roughly $6 million over a 3-year period. I'm not suggesting that you need to change it right now because these are not bid out estimates. They are architect estimates at about $200 a square foot. But we could use some more time in terms of how we want to accomplish that second floor remodel. We could do it in a couple different phases. What I don't want to have happen is have us approve portions of it and then another board turn it down, so we end up with only a half of a final product on the second floor. But I thought it would be important for me to let you know that it's about $9 million at this point, where we have about $6 million over 3 years. We can adjust the second and third year, so it's not as if I need to have a change today. But I don't want people to be surprised and think that we didn't know that there was roughly a $9 million estimate at this point. But it's early in the process with an architect, and I just wanted you to be aware of that. So.
Are there any
We could-
questions so far?
Yeah, we could take questions on that portion. I don't know if that.
Supervisor Diedrich?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Administrator. Just quick on that last comment about the 9 million instead of 6 million over 3 years. How do you plan to fund that?
All sales tax.
Okay.
So, just to be clear, there are significant unspent sales tax dollars. Cumulatively not earmarked over 6 million, approximately, as of today, and that doesn't account for going into next year. We've had significant underspends in sales tax. So if you do recall, we budget fairly conservatively on that sales tax revenue because it's pretty new to us. So we were $1 million or so shy in the very beginning. It's allowed us to make some adjustments to projects as necessary for sales tax without having to borrow. When you get to a project the size of the second floor, for example, and right now roughly 9 million, it's not typical, but we could talk about it in the future as how we either build or don't build reserves in sales tax. So this was not something that I had intended to do. It was not necessarily good information coming from the previous finance director as to what was available in sales tax. So when Mike came on board, became clear as to what was available. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just how do we want to manage those funds? And I believe it's the instructions from the county board that implemented it, that it's capital projects. And this would be an appropriate capital project rather than letting those funds sit. It really should be, the intention was to save the taxpayers while implementing sales tax and allow us to continue to buy down or pay down the debt while still maintaining infrastructure. So the recommendation is the project is all sales tax.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to comment. I think the board should realize that the Administrative Services Committee is going to look at this in months down the road to see how we want to strategically look at sales tax and what's uncommitted and not committed. Because as Kimberly might point out, there's some counties have gotten into issues that when they had, I'm going to say too much or they underspent. So we need to have a strategy how we're going to handle it. I'm not saying we should spend it. That's not my intention. I'd rather build up our general fund and a bunch of other things. But so we're going to have some discussions on this in the ensuing months of how we don't get ourselves in this position. Thank you.
Supervisor Booty?
Thank you. To, I guess, continue the discussion about this second floor remodel project, I am looking at our capital improvement funding sheet in the budget, page 16 of what I see here. Where, in what department is that expenditure listed? Because I do not see a change in the budget we have in our agenda here versus the draft I got back in early October.
Because there is no change.
Okay, so
I
this
found
is just
out
a
2 days prior, possibly, so it's just a
heads up
warning
of-
flare, yes.
Gotcha, okay.
And if someone chooses to create a different policy document on the capital improvement plan, I wanted to give you that opportunity. I'm not asking for it right now because it's very early. For example, Matt and I talked about it end of last week. He does what he does and puts together nice visuals and amounts and says, for example, you could do this first phase next year for the money that you have in there, and it happens to be the priority items for second floor. So if that makes sense, what you have in here allows us to do at least a portion of it that we would consider a priority and allows us some time to talk about how you spend the rest of, if you spend the rest of it.
So this is one of your heads up of, hey, Matt, we're going to be coming for a budget amendment. Don't be upset about it.
That's my best, yes.
Okay.
Supervisor Tunis, did you have a question?
Thank you, I canceled it. I was thinking that when we were looking at it before with the capital improvement, I was thinking that there were a number of funds already allocated to sales tax, and I'm thinking highway as one of them. And I thought that, and maybe I was reading this wrong, that there were more than what we thought we'd have already, and now you're adding more. So maybe I'm reading it wrong. So that was my concern.
Right, I think what your previous question was, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, is that the capital improvement plan has roughly $10 million in total capital improvement items to spend on sales tax, when really the sales tax revenue is under $7 million. So I think your question was, how do you account for that? And that is because we have millions of dollars in the non-lapsing account. So this budget plans to spend some of that down. Not all of it, but it does plan on spending some of it down. So you'll see the additional expenditures, but the sales tax dollars are coming from what we have in balance, if
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, except that I'm a little concerned about spending things down because we're lucky in our county that we have all the growth going on. But is that going to continue? I guess that's a question. And do you spend it all down, in big amounts of it, or do you try to hold some of it for times when things aren't quite as good? And I guess that's a concern, but thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, all right.
Okay, I can keep going. All right. So we like to talk about the positive things that are occurring as far as what's in your green book. We hit some of the highlights on these slides. But there's detailed information in the green books, how these numbers are determined. But it's nice to highlight a few things because, as Kathy just mentioned, we have some very positive things economically occurring in Calumet County. But I do believe that we still maintain that conservative approach to how we budget from year to year or over a 5-year plan. So one of the economic measures by county is the 5-year job growth, and we continue to outperform in the 5-year job growth numbers. So I've talked about this before, that this number, even at a 5-year, could be even better. However, we did take a hit on some of that job growth back during the pandemic time. So in 2020 and 2021, the numbers weren't as positive as what we see here. But we continue to outperform with the 11.8. I think last year was even better, but still a significant change for us. Population change, so I think it's no surprise to anyone that we continue to grow population-wise. We're one of the fastest, at least within the top 2, 3, 4 in the state. And this percentage at 6% versus our surrounding counties, some actually even losing population in Fond du Lac and Manitowoc, has been a positive. And the population change usually goes along, not always, goes along with that net new construction and other growth and job growth. It depends on the makeup of the population growth, I suppose. We talked about this a little bit the last time, the growth in equalized value with the TID in this particular case. So equalized value continues to grow, and these counties that we've chosen from year to year have not changed since I've been doing it. I was finding myself, I was like, oh, I probably should tell Mike how we end up choosing randomly the counties that are on here. This really is just geography. So a lot of times if you listen to Dale Knapp, for those of you who may know him, he's the brilliant mind behind forward analytics at WCA. He often jokes with me saying, well, it's Calumet County and you're getting all of the growth because of all of those surrounding counties that are growing in other ways, and the population coming to us, which is a great place to live, which is why we become more of a bedroom community. But we choose them just because they're near. There are other ways to determine comparable counties, and you could really spend some time doing it based on the economic measure. I have not done that. If anybody is interested, we could certainly do that, but we're just choosing the neighbors. Equalized value per capita. This really has been consistent the last few years. We end up in 4th in this area. And I think it's been Brown, Outagamie, Sheboygan, 1, 2, 3, pretty consistently from year to year. But that's an important measure, and Mike will get into that a little bit with one of his slides. But that's when we talk about how the tax rate is determined. And really, we're held to that net new construction, but the equalized value, the change in the equalized value and the change in inflation ends up driving that rate down because we're on a levy limit. Unemployment rate, I've talked about this before. It can be a very positive thing, and yet it can be a very challenging thing when you're on the recruitment side and need people. But we have consistently been the lowest unemployment rate in our region, and oftentimes statewide. I think Wisconsin's unemployment rate was 3%, so we've been better than the Wisconsin rate. And Wisconsin is a percentage or better than the national unemployment rate, which I think is a little over 4%. Big one.
All right. Thanks, Todd, for that. All right, so net new construction. The key element here to understand or take away is the equalized value. The two key components of that is either the market-driven increases, so the existing property values that are there, or the net new construction, which is kind of an estimate that's driven by the DOR, which is used to kind of keep fairness and equity as far as what the property tax assessed or what, how we distribute what that increase would be. It has zero basis on what is actually kind of passed down to what that property owner sees on their tax bill. That comes through the appraisal process on that specific property. But it's worth noting that the new construction for us at about 2.5-ish, 2.53%, does exceed on average what the net new construction was for the entire state. So that new construction was 2%, which equated to 15.2 billion within Wisconsin. We were at 2.53. In our county specifically, we ranked second percentage-wise. And what does that mean as far as dollars go? We're the 22nd, which is very consistent with where we were at in prior year. And primarily the demographic or the split between this would be the residential and commercial areas. 75 million, or billion, sorry, is what the equalized value impact increase was within the state of Wisconsin. 70 billion of that was specifically residential and commercial, and that'll kind of come to fruition in these next slides. So this slide just depicts what's the net new construction impact by municipality. So the equalized value, again, the 7.2 billion. Starting in 2024, the increase as of new construction as of 8/8 was 183 million. So the 2.53% increase year over year for that net new construction. That's what we're capped at to increase what we would say is tax levy, or what would get apportioned outward or reapportioned once the tax bill is pushed out. It's worth noting the annual CPI in comparison to any other net new construction. So the county level, as well as the Wisconsin as a whole, is always slightly lower than the annual CPI. So any increases that you see from net new construction, your levy never truly fully supports what that inflationary pressure is. You'll note that 2020, I mean, we have here depicted 2018 through 2025. 2020, there was a slight anomaly or blip, so to speak, due to COVID and those subsequent years, where that kind of flipped, where you had the CPI that was a little bit lower than what we had kind of building up towards for that net new construction or levy increase. So it's worth noting here that, again, CPI is slightly below 3%, but the net new construction for 2% for the state and 2.53 for the county, it's not. It's trending forward on pace to keep with the annual CPI, but never to exceed. So a few quick facts pertaining to the proposed budget that we have in place. Again, it's worth noting that this doesn't include special education, because that comes through as a separate budget that's passed earlier based on the schooling year. So our 2025 budget total expenditures were 72.4 million. Our recommendation for 2026 is 74.7, so an increase of 3.11%. Some of that is picked up through levy as well as other outside funding sources and existing fund balances as depicted in the summaries within. The tax rate 2025 was about $3.50 per thousand, and that is recommendation down now to 3.33. So as you see the net new construction increase on top of your equalized value, the tax rate is actually going to decline over time, because the increase that we have from that tax rate is increasing at a lesser rate than our equalized value is increasing at. So the change there from 25 to 26 was a decrease of about 4.86%. The tax levy draw in 25 would have been 23.6, roughly 23.7 million. Recommendation this year is 24.4 million, or an increase of 3.23%, which would again draw down. The increase would come from the 2.53% increase from tax levy and existing balance that's currently in that account. General fund balance applied 2025 budget, 2.7 million, upward to 2.9 million in '26, so a change there of 6.76%. Quick restatement or summary of the county tax rate. So as a county in '24, we were at $3.50 per thousand, down now at 2025 to about 3.33 for that next year's budget. So that's 17 cents roughly per thousand decrease that you'll see. That's a part of that equalized value. And again, this is just a generalized tax rate in that countywide average, which is based on equalized value, not necessarily what goes through on the property tax that's assessed and pushed out. Average annual percentage change in tax rate. So if we look back 25 years, 5 years, so it's decreasing, or the percentage rate change, it's accelerating, so to speak. So our decrease is increasing at a faster rate. If we look now, it's at about a negative 8%. So tax rate's declining. Most impactful here is that the equalized value or new construction is continuing to outpace what that cap in funding is able to be drawn. Average annual percentage levy increase, 5 years, if we look back, it's about pretty consistent, even looking back 25 years. It's been teetering always around the 4.5% to about 2% if we put a best fit line on here. It's slowly trending downward. So the levy increase of 2.53%, it's probably going to stay around there for the future, so to speak. So the proposed county property tax rate, this is ours in comparison to others, $3.50 per thousand. And here, as Todd had mentioned, these are just the other counties that we had kind of benchmarked against, which is very, to me, noteworthy as far as for the financial stability that we have within our county. If the economy is driven primarily by new job growth, which we have outpaced by, as well as equalized value that's increasing at a very substantial rate with zero decline there expected, our draw on the county dollars should remain at that conservative level that we have maintained within our budget in the past and for foreseeable future. When looking at our debt that we leverage, so the county right now we're at 10.22%. Yes, we have the ability to borrow upwards of that, but 37 million is what we're currently sitting at, with an approximate 2.75 million per year outlay to pay off that debt over the next several years. Here's just a summary of that 25 through 2039 when that general obligation debt will be ceased or exhausted. So again, it's around that 2.75 per year within the scheduled budget. Breakdown of how those funds and expenditures are distributed, very comparable to the 2025 budget and prior years. Health and Human Services, Public Works, Public Safety, and General Government kind of making up the large sectors. And the others, debt service making up the smaller piece, just as we're continuing to pay off that existing general obligation debt. Revenues that are coming in, primarily what we have the control, so to speak, over. Again, DOR kind of sets that cap on what we have for the tax levy. So that is in here. General property taxes at 40.9%, so that's the majority, plus the intergovernmental revenues, which really would be any grant funding inside or outside or interdepartmental transfers. Support by department, so the expenditure draws here for 2025, we had Sheriff's Department. Really, this is just the kind of delineation of what departments are either within actuals or within budget, and where that kind of is coming in.
The year wasn't changed on that.
I was going to say, this looks like, yeah, it should have been 26 support. Sorry for that. So yeah, 5 million budget request for Health and Human Services and so on and so forth. With the, yeah.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, it should be 26. Any questions?
Any questions of Mike or Todd? You all understand where we're going and how we put the budget together. All right, if there are no questions, please vote your ballot. Ann?
I vote yes.
Thank you. So we have 17 yes, 0 nay, 0 abstain, 4 absent. So the budget for 2026 has been adopted. Thank you. Moving on to ordinances. Ordinance 2025-12.
Ordinance 2025-12, ordinance to amend the Calumet County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 70, Article 1, escort fees, permits for overweight and oversized vehicles, introduced by the Highway Committee.
All right, I have a motion by Supervisor Swallenberg and a second by Supervisor Diedrich. And Supervisor Booty, would you speak to this ordinance, please?
Thank you very much. As you can see from the textual change here, we are going away from a flat fee per permit issued to one that recoups expenses, since it costs us at the county level well more than $100 to maintain coverage for an oversized, overweight vehicle. So that's the change here. Thank you.
All right, are there any questions regarding this ordinance? If not, please vote your ballot. Ann? Yes. We have 17 yes, 0 nay, 0 abstain, and 4 absent, so that ordinance has been adopted. Moving on to ordinance 2025-13.
Ordinance 2025-13, ordinance to amend Chapter 82, zoning code on certain property in the town of BRILLION, property of VICKI ZOBEL.
All right, I have a motion by Supervisor Johnston and a second by Supervisor Miller. And Supervisor Kessler, would you speak to this ordinance?
Okay, so VICKI ZOBEL is requesting to rezone approximately 2.3 acres from light industrial district to the mixed-use commercial district. The rezoning will correct existing zoning issues with the subject property and allow businesses on the western portion of the property to continue operation as permitted. The rezoning is consistent with the town and county comprehensive plan, and the town of BRILLION has no objection to the proposal.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Supervisor Kessler? If not, please vote your ballot.
Yes.
Thank you. We have 17 yes, 0 nays, 0 abstain, and 4 absent. So that ordinance has been adopted. Are there any supervisor reports? Anybody who's attended anything want to report on anything? Supervisor Steer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to point out, for veterans, we have Operation Green Light for veterans from November 4th to the 11th, so put a green light out there. This is the, 5th year for this? There's 3,069 counties participating, so countrywide. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Steer. Anyone else? Supervisor Schwalberg?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I've mentioned under the resolution, Ledgeview, the decision has been made to keep the facility closed until it's totally finished versus allowing the classrooms to be used when they're working on the area by the waterfall and whatever, because, we know from experience we have people that like to go see what's going on. So that decision has been made. The other thing with Human Services, and thank you to Supervisor Connors, who was speaking to the WCA about volunteer drivers, who almost half of our volunteer drivers have decided not to drive. And excuse me, but I will read to you why. It's due to insurance. As long as insurance companies classify volunteer drivers receiving mileage reimbursement as commercial activity, They will continue to deny coverage or raise premiums, and volunteer driver programs will continue to lose existing volunteers. So as I said, Supervisor Connors is talking to WCA. They're trying to get a resolution through before the end of the session. It's going to be authored by Senator Jesse James, so that we're all kind of familiar with. So, and I had asked that we put that on the agenda too for the Human Services Steering Committee in a couple of weeks too, to discuss it, to see if other counties are having the same problems we are, which I'm assuming they probably are. But these people don't get paid for this. They do this, it's a volunteer program. They get mileage is what it is. And so somebody always has to, unfortunately, make things difficult. So hopefully we'll see that soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm working with Colin Driscoll from the WCA, and we have legislation already ready to go for signatures. Looks like it's moving quickly. All right, any questions on the county administrator's report? All right. If not, our next meeting will be December 16th at 6 p.m. And we have completed the agenda, so I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for your attendance and for your listening to the budget and adopting our budget. It's a good budget. We are a frugal county, and we are moving ahead. Thank you.
Take care of yourself.
Yeah, you too.
Do your stress test, if that's what you have to do, to stay healthy.